Okay, one other topic that we're going to cover today is evaluating expressions. And what that is what we talked about in the combining like terms video. At the very end, we talked about the perimeter, that if there was a variable that we did not know the value of, that's where a variable comes in. If there's something that's unknown, we used a letter to hold its place until we know what that value is. Well, when you find out what that value is, or what that variable equals, then we can evaluate that expression and find out exactly what the solution is. So the first thing we need to know about evaluating expressions is what we call the substitution property. Okay, substitution property says this: if A equals B, then A can be replaced for B in any expression, which is pretty self-explanatory. If one thing equals another, then I can replace those back and forth. It's the same thing as synonyms that we use in English language all the time. If small and little mean the same thing, then I can replace the word small with little in any given sentence. Okay, so substitution property works the same thing with math. If x is equal to the number 4, then at any point when I see an x, I can substitute the number 4 to represent that, and vice versa. Okay, so substitution property. So when we go to evaluate an expression, we keep in mind that substitution property. So the first thing we want to do is substitute. We substitute the variable with the given value, and you have your notes in front of you so you can fill this in or write it out on your notes on paper if you're doing that. So we're going to take that variable and we're going to substitute in the value that we've been given for it, the number that it's worth. The important thing that we need to remember is right here, okay, number 2. Each time you substitute a variable with a number, you need to put parentheses around it. And I'll show you the importance of that in a few example problems. It's super important that we use parentheses, because when we get into negatives, sometimes we can miss a question because we misused our negatives because we didn't have the parentheses. So always put your parentheses there. Okay, and then we're going to follow the order of operations, okay, to finish evaluating or to simplify that expression. So once we have it substituted and we know what the value is, we need to simplify that or evaluate it all the way down to the final answer. Okay, so a few example problems. We'll go through these, and there's not very many and it shouldn't take very long. So if we have AB squared plus C, this is our expression that we're starting with. Okay, these are our given values. We know that A is 2. I also know that B is 4 and C is 7. If I know this about these values, by substitution property, I can substitute these numbers for those letters. So I'm going to start with my A, and then there's a B squared plus C. So instead of A, I'm going to substitute the number 2. Instead of B, I'm going to substitute the number 4. And instead of C, I'm going to substitute the number 7. Okay, so see where A is 2, I just replace that A with a 2, replace the B with a 4, and replace the C with a 7. Now, it's all in parentheses, and so I'm going to follow the order of operations. So order of operations says parentheses first. Well, we don't have a group here. These parentheses are really just value holders, okay? So we skip to exponent. I do have an exponent, so I'm going to take care of that first. So I still have this 2. 4 squared, remember, is the same as 4 times 4. It means I take that number and I multiply it by itself this many times. So 4 multiplied by itself. So 4 times 4 is 16 plus 7. All right. Next step of order of operations is multiplication and division. So here's my multiplication. 2 times 16 is 32. And then bring down everything else. Last step is addition, and I'm left with 39. Okay, so now that everything has been simplified, okay, this expression is actually 39 because we've taken each of these numbers, substituted in, and then simplified to find the value. Okay? All right, so we're going to do the same thing in this next example. We have 3x squared minus 4x. So I'm just going to go ahead and everywhere that I see an x, I'm going to put parentheses. So 3 instead of x squared, I'm going to put parentheses squared. And minus 4 instead of x, I'm going to put parentheses. Okay. X is negative 2. So this negative 2, I'm going to substitute in both places where there was an x. So negative 2 goes here, and negative 2 goes here. Okay. All right. So let's go through our order of operations and see if we can get an answer here. Okay. So we start with grouping. There is no grouping. All of these parentheses are, again, our placeholders. So then we move to exponent. And I do have an exponent. Okay. Now be very careful with this. If you type negative 2 squared into a calculator, you are going to get negative 4 as an answer. Okay. That is why these parentheses are so important. Because that negative 2 is supposed to be in parentheses, meaning it is the negative 2 that's being squared, not just the 2. Okay, so your calculator, and I'll just show you this real fast, reads negative 2 squared as negative outside of a 2 squared, and that is not what we want. Okay, we want it to read it as negative 2 squared, which is negative 2 times negative 2. Okay, that is what we want. So I need to put it in parentheses. And when I do that, I'm going to get a positive answer because two negatives multiplied together get a positive answer. Okay, and so positive 4 is what we will get here. Then we bring everything else down that we already had, and we can go to the next step, which is multiplication. And we do multiplication from left to right. So I can multiply these together, and I can multiply these together. So 3 times 4 is 12. 4 times negative 2. Okay, be careful here because this is a minus sign, but that minus is also part of this 4. So it's really plus a negative 4. So it's a negative 4 being multiplied by a negative 2, which is a positive 8. Okay, and then we can add those two things together. All right. Now, if that, what I just did, that plus a negative, confuses you, all right, we can look at it like this, and it won't change the answer. 3 times 4 is 12. And then this 4 times a negative 2 is a negative 8. Bring that minus sign down. 12 minus a negative 8 is the exact same thing as 12 plus 8. Okay, we would actually change that to a plus and change that to a plus. Or if you put it in the calculator, 12 minus a negative 8 is still going to give you a positive 20. Okay, either way. So 20 is the evaluated expression value there. All right, so just a few examples to kind of get you started. I'm going to show you a few more examples in another video, and then we will be finished with this topic.